We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which we and all of you meet. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging.
Welcome to the podcast, Sex, Love and Science with Lauren and Lauren, two sex and relationship experts.
We will address all of the big issues in sex, love, and relationships.
We recognize that humanity is diverse. All bodies, orientations, and sexualities are welcome.
In this episode, we are talking about one of the biggest issues we see in couples counseling. Big ticket item, conflict.
Oh,
Fighting amongst partners.
big one. And and it doesn't always have to look like fighting. It can be stonewalling each other and not fighting. We've gone a decade. Rather than fighting, you just ignore each other, which is another form of conflict.
Yeah, conflict has so many different styles. And I think that can feel really different for partners when they get into a relationship with someone that has a really different style to them.
And the reality is that you're going to fight, you're going to bicker, you're going to engage in conflict with your partner. It's going to happen.
Yeah, conflict can be a really healthy part of relationships. It can be how we negotiate problems, how we resolve things, how we work out our plans for the future. It can be how we really explore ourselves.
Yes, good point about fixable problems, right? So unfortunately, 69% of things that couples have conflict over are perpetual. Means you are going to fight and bicker over the same shit.
This is my favorite statistic, 69. I mean, who would have thought? It's such a fabulous number for this statistic. But yet 69% of problems are unsolvable. Toilet seat up, toilet seat down. You are never going to know who is right in that equation. So why fight it?
And the cycle continues. It's just, so I guess the question here is, how do you fight smarter?
How do you fight in a way that doesn't damage your relationship and damage your connection to your partner?
And that's what we're going to go through today. Some of these big ticket items. And, I think a good thing to kind of just start exploring just right off the bat is, what are some of the biggest topics couples argue about? and here, this is straight out of our offices, guys. This is some of the biggest ticket items that we hear. That we hear several times a day. Lauren, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think one of the big things I see from clients is this phrase where they say, "I just don't feel heard."
Oh, yeah.
I just don't feel heard. And the conflict isn't really about anything in particular. It's just about their partner actually listening to them, validating them, and hearing what they say. That can cause huge conflict in relationships where one person just doesn't feel seen by the other person.
And you know what? I think that actually might be the biggest one for me as well. It's the I don't feel seen. And the unfortunate thing is, if one or both or three, however many people are in this relationship, are feeling unseen, as that transpires over time, the relationship doesn't have much hope. You can always come back together, right? That is what we do. That's how can we feel seen and heard and safe and loved and connected. But if you're not addressing how to feel seen, the connection's going to dwindle.
Yeah, most people say that they don't actually need to be right in these fights. They just want to be seen. They just want to be heard. They just want their partner to get them. And there are tools for that. There are strategies that we can use to help you to feel that experience of being seen. But it's really commonly not what happens in client situations.
That is a very good point. Other big ticket items that we hear about is, actually what we just did our last episode on is one person wants more sex than the other. And then that brings that feeling of, you don't love me, you don't see me, you don't desire me, and therefore that's a problem.
Yeah, couples fight so much about the quantity of sex that they're having in their life. One person feels rejected, and that can be really tense and emotional for that person. The other person feels like they're pressured, there's expectations put on them. Sex is a big, big source of conflict and confusion for clients.
Yeah, exactly. And as you brought up earlier, Lauren, it's wanting that empathy. So I guess that's something else that I think is a massive issue is regardless of the topic, whether it's money, lack of sex, where do we send the kids to private school, what are we doing here? It's the lack of empathy for feeling heard and to be able to state your position. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I give to people is to being able to agree to disagree, which is very valuable under the umbrella of conflict.
Yeah, I always say if you want to win in a fight with your partner, then nobody wins.
Yep. Oh, what is it? Is it Terry Real, who says you can be right or you can be married?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I don't know if it can you get more blunt than that?
That's really good, right? You can be right or you cannot be with anyone because it's the choices, right, that we make about ourselves. And, part of conflict is to be heard and to be seen, but also it's about resolving things. And people often lose sight of what their goal is in a fight. They just want to be right. And they forget that their goal might actually be, hey, I want you to hear me. Hey, I want you to understand me. And they don't present themselves in that way at all.
Yeah, correct. And exactly, it's about the understanding. Sometimes it's not about solving something, but it's just wanting to be understood. I think that's really the crux of it. And when we feel misunderstood, I'm going to say if we look at some of the Gottman framework and look at the 4 horsemen, which is Gottman he broke down 4 different types of conflict with the 4 horsemen, which we'll talk about in a second. But when we don't feel understood, these horsemen come flying out wildly.
Yeah, some of our behaviors in conflict can be some of the key predictors to divorce and separation. So how you fight has a huge impact on the success of your relationship.
Yeah, yep. I mean, some of the most successful couples that I've seen have really great conflict skills. And I think that's a really good point, Lauren. Now, you mentioned predicting divorce quite easily. So which one is the worst? Let's start with the worst.
Okay, so not to scare any of you, because before we start, everyone does these. I do these behaviors with my partner. Lauren, I'm pretty sure you do occasionally do them. It's something which we all do at varying degrees. So if you identify with these behaviors, it doesn't mean that you're about to go down the divorce separation path. It just means be mindful and check these behaviors and correct them.
Absolutely. This is probably why I don't have a partner. Just kidding. That's a relationship killer. And let's think about it. It's a relationship killer because it is just pretty awful. Like if we're making contemptuous comments or having contemptuous behaviors towards someone, they're probably not going to want to be with you.
Yeah. So contempt is when you're attacking someone's character. So, criticism would be, oh, you forgot to pick your clothes up on the floor. Contempt is you're a lazy person. You don't care about the cleanliness in our house. You don't have any family values. That is contempt. It's an attack on someone's character, who they are.
Yeah. And I mean, gosh, if you're attacking, your partner's character or they're attacking your character, how are you going to feel understood? It makes sense. It's not a very nice one.
No, I mean, this is the person you're supposed to love. This is your teammate or mates in life. So feeling contempt about them really, really creates a big divide between you and who they are and whether you can love them or not.
Exactly. And sometimes a response, not always to contempt, but one of the other horsemen would be stonewalling. And stonewalling looks like basically ignoring your partner or just wanting to shut things down. Walking away, hearing something you don't like, just walking away, or maybe just slamming a door, the silent treatment. And it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, stonewalling can look different in so many different people. Like you said, Lauren, it can be really explosive, I'm getting out of here and slamming the door. It can also just be silent doom scrolling. When someone is basically blocking their partner's emotional connection or their bids for connection with them, it's a real shutdown. It's a real internalization process, and it can feel pretty darn cold for the person receiving the stonewalling approach.
It is. I think, yeah, exactly. It's really cold. And it's not building that, it erodes that connection, and it's not building any of those beautiful, warm, fuzzy feelings that you're going to want to have.
Yeah. And I mean, when we look at our reasons for stonewalling, it makes a bit of sense. Stonewalling is usually when we're really emotionally dysregulated. So Gottman and Gottman in their research would actually put these little pulse oximeters on their clients' fingers and they would watch their heart rates go. And when they went beep, 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 beep really fast and they reached a certain level of regulation, they would pause their clients or they would watch these behaviors occur. Because when we're really heightened and dysregulated, we stonewall sometimes to exit, to keep ourselves safe from conflict, except ironically, it doesn't keep us safe in our relationship.
No, but there is an antidote to taking a time out, right? So I think it's really worth noting that it's okay if you have the ability to know that you're at your boiling point, rather than just walking away or screaming at your partner, just voicing that.
Yeah.
It's just saying, hey, I need 10 minutes here. I need to go regulate. I need to cool down and let's resume this conversation in about 15 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. Look, for all these behaviors, they have antidotes, which we're going to cover next after we've gone through them all, because I think it's really important for you to know that these aren't disaster situations, that you can actually fix them and correct them, right?
Exactly. So the third one that you spoke about earlier was criticism.
Yeah, criticism. So that can be, oh, you forgot to do this. Oh, you didn't do that. It can also be the, crossed hands and looking at someone really dirty. It can be the rolling of eyes. A lot of criticism is done through physical gesture as well.
Yeah, or even picking on the way people do things. I find that a lot of couples will engage in criticism. You didn't do the dishes good enough. You weren't supposed to do the laundry like that. You don't peg out the washing like I do. You didn't pick up kids at the same time that I do. Why not? And so criticism, whilst it doesn't seem as significant, all of these 1,000 little examples do add up.
Yeah, these transactions can really make your partner feel really disconnected from you.
Yeah. And, criticism usually goes hand in hand with the last horseman, which is defensiveness. I think most people are probably guilty of this.
Yeah, criticism and defensiveness are best friends. They operate in a little cycle, right? Someone criticizes, oh, you didn't pick your clothes up off the floor. The defensive person comes in, oh, well, you didn't do it last week, right? It's this, you didn't, well, I did, well, you didn't, well, I did. It's that kind of battle that we see a lot in conflict where someone's trying to speak and someone's defending, and it really escalates and heightens a lot in a really stuck manner.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of my children. But here we are. We're adults and we don't really grow out of that cycle. I didn't do that. You did that. And why do we do that is because it's really hard to take accountability. As grown-ups and as children, no one wants to take accountability. So this really separates the people who can take a good hard look at themselves and make change for your relationship.
Yeah, definitely. You need to look at yourself individually. And if you identify with one of these behaviors, there are things you can do. There are the antidotes to these behaviors, which are corrective behaviors that can help to get you out of these behaviors and change the interactions with your partner.
So listen up. These are some things you might want to just hint at your partner to start changing, right? So identify how you guys argue and how you fight. And what do they do that drives you absolutely crazy? Are they constantly defensive? Well, let's tell you some antidotes to give to them.
But if you're a criticizer, don't do it in a critical way, because that's still criticism. So maybe just saying, hey, I found a really nice thing. We'll teach you how to do criticism.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go into some antidotes. So defensiveness. All right. Let's start there. As I mentioned, it's the taking accountability. Right? You're right. I did leave my clothes all over the floor, and that probably annoys you. I get it. I've got a really busy 2 days, but I promise I'm going to pick these clothes up eventually.
Yeah, my favorite one for defensiveness is for clients that think they didn't do anything wrong. And for those clients, I say, you don't have to say your partner's right, but you do have to take accountability or acknowledge how they feel about it. So you don't have to always say, yeah, I stuffed up. You can say, oh, geez, you're really mad at me. Lean into what feeling they're having and take accountability that they feel that feeling toward you. You're really upset. Oh, yeah, this has really annoyed you, rather than necessarily saying, you're right, I'm an idiot, because that might not be how you feel. It could be really hard to take accountability if you don't think you've done anything wrong.
Exactly. But I guess clothes on the floor is a really good example, because if they are on the floor and you think that it's okay for them to be on the floor, you're entitled to that opinion. Right? You're not agreeing that you have to have everything your partner's way, but you're saying, you're right, my clothes are on the floor. That's okay. I've been really busy and that really bothers you. I understand. I understand why you're pissed off at me.
Yeah, taking accountability doesn't mean that your partner is right. It just means you're acknowledging them, that you're giving them some verification for how they're feeling and just seeing them in that moment. It doesn't mean that you 100% agree with them.
And I think that's a really good point, because this goes back to connecting. This goes back to, yes, not drifting and turning towards, and just being able to fight fair.
Definitely. We're about resolving the relationship problem, not necessarily the problem of the clothes on the floor. It's the bigger picture, right? It's how you interact with your partner. It's not whether the clothes should be on the floor or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could be right, or you can be married, right?
Yeah, you can have the clothes on the floor, or you can have a partner that's happy. It's a choice, right? Choices.
Yeah, exactly. Let's own our choices, guys.
So let's go with the next one. Let's go with criticism. So criticism, best friends with defensiveness. When we're critical, the one option we have for that is to really use a gentle startup. So I like to call that, in Australian talk, the shit sandwich technique, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with, which is like a compliment sandwich, right? So one good thing, one bad thing, one good thing. And the key to doing this is to try and make it not patronizing, as it can be a little hard to do. So, it might be, hey, I can see you've had a really busy week this week. I would really love it if we could try and get the clothes on the floor done by the evening. Maybe we can do it together as some kind of thing we can do with some music on, right? So you put that bit of pick your bloody clothes up in the middle of two really soft statements either side.
Oh, see, you know what? I've never heard it described like that. Oh. I like it. I really like that, Lauren.
Yeah. I mean, it's a simple one to remember. A lot of people use a gentle startup with their kids. I don't know if you do this, Lauren, but people are really great at softening their language with their children. If your child gives you a really disgusting picture, oh, yeah, look, that's really great. Maybe next time we can keep the crayon in the paper square, right? Oh, look, that's such a good pony, right? So we could just go to the kid, hey, you just drew all over the table, right? But we sandwich it in the middle.
I like
really
that.
Beautifully.
I like that. I do. I might start using that as well with my kids. No, I digress. And I guess one way I've always described this would be to do the I feels. So instead of making it about the clothes, right, going back to that ridiculous example, that's actually quite common, is I feel anxious. I get really anxious when there's stuff all over the bedroom. Now, it's not saying you're a slob and you need to pick up your clothes. It's taking accountability for how you feel. Now, if you're saying to your partner how you feel, and the whole point of this is to understand, see, and be heard, and vice versa, then your partner's going to want to lean in, and hopefully they're going to care about how you're feeling, right? Wow, you're anxious. I don't understand that, but I don't want you being anxious, so let's do something about that. And that's how I like to kind of get people out of being critical, is really just taking accountability and using the I feels and what's going on.
Definitely it works that way. When we focus on ourselves and the role we're playing and how we're feeling, it is so much better than when we focus on the other person and what they're not doing.
Yeah.
Because that's all you can change, right? Yourself.
Exactly. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Spot on. So let's go back to stonewalling.
Yeah, stonewalling.
Oh, back to the antidote. We spoke a little bit about that, but right, you're ignoring somebody and you're just walking off. How would you do that better, Lauren?
Well, it's a sign, remember, that we are emotionally dysregulated. So we are feeling really heightened within ourselves. So from that perspective, we need to be able to take care of ourselves emotionally so that we can engage in conflict in a healthy way. So self-soothing, looking after yourself, using some self-care strategies. You might like to have with your partner a little system for communicating that you're dysregulated. So some of my clients will use like a code word. Some of my clients that find it really hard to speak when they're dysregulated will grab like a safe pillow, which indicates I'm freaking out. Don't talk to me any further. And what this does is it creates a pause so that you can go and do some soothing and then safely return to the conversation, rather than giving your partner the look of just a hard exit, like you're checking out.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable. Sometimes I guess in back to context, if you're not at home, if you're in the car, if you're somewhere else and you're shopping and you're getting into the heat of the moment, and you do, I've actually seen people do the timeout, right? Yeah. I think that's actually just or having a hand gesture of a polite something or
a
polite one. Right, not giving the finger here, but a thumbs down or a pause, hand up, just to say, hey, I need to bring it down, please. And sometimes you can figure out a non-offensive way to do that.
It has to be pre-approved though, so it has to be something you've both shared. You can't just come up with, I'm going to time out my partner, because if they don't know what you mean by that, they might get even more angry. So you need to talk to them about it.
Correct.
Say, hey, can we have a system for me to let you know when I'm just a bit overwhelmed? What I'd like to do is do a timeout symbol, or I'd really love to grab this pillow. And in doing that, I'm not ending the conversation. I'm pausing it so that I can come back to you and have a conversation when I'm fully regulated and I'm able to actually communicate to my truth a bit better.
Yes, exactly. And again, it's going back to you do have to tell your partner, I'll come back, right? I need to regulate. Just give me 10 minutes. Or this topic is so heavy for me. I want to think about it. I'm not able to have this conversation. I promise, can we revisit this tomorrow? Right. I need to, this is just a big one for me. And I think that's worth noting, because it will piss your partner off that you're exiting the conversation. But if you don't give them, if you don't tell them when you're going to be revisiting, it looks even worse.
Yeah, you can't use this strategy of calling a timeout as a sneaky way to actually stonewall.
Correct.
I see that a lot where clients go, oh, yeah, I've got an excuse now to just time it out and never talk about these things ever.
No,
that's not what we're saying.
No. You got to revisit.
Yep. And also, when you call the timeout, you can't go then to your separate space and go, oh my God, I really hate them, and really dysregulate yourself even more. You do actually have to take time out to soothe yourself, to calm yourself. That's not to say that you have to shut your feelings off. But what we're talking about is getting yourself to an emotional state where you can actually vocalize them in a healthy way.
Yes. And look, I think the other thing to point out here is that we're giving you some ideas and some strategies. If you can start doing some of them, they might not work for you and your partner, and that's okay. You've got to figure out what works for you and works for the relationship. So let's say you try a hand gesture and cooling down and saying, all right, I'll come back to this in 10 minutes. And you try that lots and it doesn't work. Well, maybe you're going to have to try a different strategy, right? It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong, but you need to find something that works. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you need to be persistent here.
Yeah. And sometimes for clients that have conflict, I'll tell them to practice having conflict and see what works. But practice with really easy things like pineapple on pizza, dogs versus cats, things that are, you're a little passionate about, but it's not actually going to break the bank if you do it.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So let's look at the antidote for our most intense and highest predictor of divorce and separation, contempt.
Well, what I like to look at is a bit of self-soothing and a little bit of back to the I feels.
Mm-hmm. And I think with contempt, we're attacking our partner's character. So what we need to do is actually connect in with what we love about our partner again. So finding the good parts of their character.
And how do you like to tell people to do that if they're really, really angry and all they can see is the bad? How when somebody's pissed you off so grandly that how do you find the good?
Well, I think first you need to take responsibility for your emotional state. And I think for clients, golden rule, if your emotions are above a 5/10, don't have the fight. Don't talk to your partner. Go and soothe yourself and then come back to the conversation.
Oh, there we go. So if you're that angry, learn to think before you speak.
Yeah. Look, we know that when you are really emotional, the part of your brain that does your thinking, your risk and planning consequences, language, memory systems, all kind of shuts down a little bit if you're in a really heightened emotional response. So it's really hard to find the right words in that time. So your best option is just to take responsibility for yourself, take care of yourself so that you can come back and think.
Yeah. Well, because if you have that lizard part of your brain taking over, you're not going to come out with some great one-liners. Just not going to happen.
Yeah, nobody wants a lizard brain fight. It's a really disastrous situation. That's when we use these behaviors. That's when we say the wrong thing. Painful.
Exactly. So, I think that kind of really wraps up the horseman side to this episode. And hopefully, we've explained what the 4 horsemen are and the antidotes and some takeaways of how to practice them. Identify the 4 and what are your fallbacks? Sometimes we have a few, sometimes we hit all of them. What does your partner do? And then how do you do this better? That's what we're saying here. But with I think the other thing to talk about, though, Lauren, in this episode is how to resolve. Right? So we're engaging in conflict. We're fighting better. Let's say we most likely have been fighting better and tidying things up, but there's still that emotional tenderness afterwards. We're a little bit tender from that fight, or our feelings got hurt. So we need to now make a repair.
Yeah, definitely. After a fight, we need to reconnect and we need to have the opportunity to express, how we feel, what our perspective was of the situation. We need to take, responsibility for our triggering, how that might be connected to our past or our past relationships and why we reacted in the way we did. Then we need to work with our partner to develop plans to maybe mitigate any of the challenges.
That's a good point. I think the other thing, though, also that I'm not sure about you, but some couples I find that the more often they engage in conflict, it's hard for them to see the positive perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So even if you're tidying up these fights and you're not really repairing, what can sometimes happen is just feeling very negative about your partner in the relationship. We're always fighting. They don't hear me, or look, here's a few big ticket issues. We always fight about stupid things around the house. But if you're not looking to the positive regard, the positive perspective of the relationship and your partner, it seems a little bit futile.
Yeah, it is human to see the negative, right? We're wired in a way where our brain is going to try and see risk and identify it to keep ourselves safe. But that can become a little bit, over exerted when we're in a relationship and we're having fights, and we get this negative sentiment override where we just constantly see everything our partner does through a negative lens. When, 99.9% of the clients I see, their partners are really not trying to hurt their other partner. They really don't have bad intentions for the other person.
That's a really good point. And sometimes it's I think that's a good reminder, is that if you can think about that overall and even before you're in a fight, that my partner has my best intentions at heart, right? They really probably aren't trying to hurt my feelings. They don't hate me, right? They're not out to get me. You might change the way you're going to engage in conflict a little bit.
Yeah, it's about saying, where are they actually coming from? What are they actually trying to do here?
And that might even change how you can, steer the conversation. Is, I'm not hearing you. I'm not understanding you, right? What are you trying to tell me? And that's trying to seek understanding and trying to tell your partner, hey, I want to hear you. And back to one of the main reasons that people engage in conflict is not feeling seen and heard. Well, if you can mitigate that from the start, you're kind of ahead.
Definitely, that's true. And when we look at relationships too, one of the factors that really contributes to a positive relationship is, you're going to like this one, it's kind of saying sorry. It's coming back and making a repair attempt, right? We call these repair attempts, coming back in to kind of say, hey, are we good? Are we okay? Trying after the relationship to reestablish a sense of normalcy where the relationship is back on track a little bit. And again, it doesn't have to be sorry, but it's just an attempt to reconnect.
Yes. And I do have to say something that a brilliant psychologist told me that really stuck with me, which was to apologize and not say sorry. because apology is very personal. You're apologizing for something that you've done that hurts the other's feelings. You're sorry for things that you don't really have control over. I'm sorry that there's wars going on around the world. I'm sorry that there is a massive gender debate at the moment, right? I'm sorry for things that are not within my control. But when you apologize, that's something of an action of yours. That always stuck with me. That was pretty big. So thank you, brilliant psychologist. Not owning that one.
Yeah, that's really beautiful advice, Lauren. I think you can come in and make that connection with your partner again and just call out the situation to, hey, that fight we had didn't feel really comfortable for me. It probably didn't for you. Can we talk about it? Anything like that, coming back in after a fight is a sign of a good relationship. Someone making that bid for connection, that repair attempt to correct it or to come back together.
Yeah, and how beautiful is it to hear your partner take accountability for something that really bothered you? I mean, sometimes, I don't know about you, Lauren, but personally, that's made me feel instantly better in the past. So it's like, oh, wow, they get it. That's nice. Yeah. Not a big deal. But if they're going to keep arguing and tell me they didn't do something, oof, that's a hard one.
Yeah, remember, there's no winners if you think you're right and you hang on to these things. Your goal is actually to repair with your partner. Your goal is actually to work on the relationship. So come back in and reinstate that goal. Hey, I want to work on the relationship. Hey, I want to repair what happened. And go in with that approach rather than trying to create more of a divide, which is against what you want.
Absolutely. I think that's, yeah. And going back to kind of, the theme of our podcast is creating that connection, whether that's sexual, intimate, loving, or friendly. That connection is really important.
And one of the big things that detracts from that is conflict. And that's why we focused on it today. It is the number one reason for clients coming in, from my perspective, anecdotally, from what I see with clients. And it is one of the big things that you can actually manage.
Yes. And so we've spoken about repairing, we've spoken about, horsemen and the antidotes. And I think just the last thing to cover is just making sure you put those positives in, that you keep building up the relationship and going back to that connection. And that's going to look different for your relationship. But know what fills your partner's love bucket.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat the other day, which was for every one negative, you need 5 positives.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So if you've said one bad thing, or if you've been critical, or if you've been stonewally, you need to layer on the love. You need to come back in and fill that tank up so that your partner has something to draw from. Because when you have a negative instance, you want to have had something in the bank. You want to have some goodwill with your partner as well.
Exactly.
For them to want to fight fair with you.
Exactly. And whilst I know we were just really talking about conflict in this episode, I'm just going to say, if you want your partner to have sex with you, if you want your partner to desire you, and if you want your partner to want to have sex, you need to examine your conflict style and take accountability for your contributing factors.
No bigger killer in the bedroom than a really bad fight, right? Even though people say that makeup sex is great, and maybe it is, what we actually see is a lot of clients really struggle with conflict affecting their sex lives.
Exactly. So I just wanted to slip that one in because
slip it in, Lauren.
just got to slip it in sometimes. It just felt a bit juicy and right. So I think that's it for today for conflict. And thanks for listening, guys. And next time, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is sexual initiation.
Oh, yeah. Where to start when you're feeling sexy, how to get the ball rolling. We are here to talk about that with you next time. Thanks for listening.
See ya.